good? Audio good?
Yep. Do you want to start that?
Yep. All right. So we're gonna start off easy.
Okay.
What is your name?
My name is Carol Wagner. Before I was married, it was Carol Ritz.
All right. Can I call you Miss Carol?
Hmm?
Can I call you Miss Carol?
You could call me Carol. I don't need the miss.
Oh, okay. Okay, Carol. And what is your date of birth?
My date of birth is July 4th, 1945.
All right. And where were you born?
I was born at St. Joseph's Hospital in Southside Pittsburgh.
Southside Pittsburgh.
Southside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
All right.
And I lived in Carrick.
Carrick. And what did your parents do?
Hmm?
What did your parents do?
My father was a truck driver. He worked all his life for Lightning Local Express. And my mother was off and on a waitress.
Off and on a waitress?
Yeah, most of the, she would stay home and then she'd get bored and she'd get a waitressing job because she loved waitressing.
Oh, okay.
And she did that like forever too.
She did it for a long time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. And what did she like about waitressing?
What did I like about
What did she like about waitressing that you can recall?
people?
People.
She was a people person.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a people person. She liked meeting people. She liked serving them, helping them with what they wanted. She was an excellent waitress. She really didn't serve in any high-class restaurant that I'm aware of, but she was good in the mom-and-pop restaurants. And she did work in downtown at one point at Ray's Restaurant, which was, at that time, the end of the Smithfield Street Bridge, and I believe the Greyhound bus station was there too. So she had a nice influx of different clients there.
Oh, okay. And do you remember the house where you spent your childhood?
I sure do.
What was it like?
It was a 3-story Insul brick house. It had sort of a finished basement because my aunt and uncle, my mother's brother, and his wife lived on the first floor, and that was a large room in the front, a smaller room behind it, and then a small room and a kitchen across the back of the house. Their bathroom was in the basement. It was coal-fired furnace. My aunt was the one that took care of the furnace most of the time, and she would do a really good job banking it. We lived on the second and third floors. The floor that we lived on had a living room, a smaller room, a big, nice bathroom, a kitchen, and another small room where my grandfather lived because the house was my grandfather's and that was my mother's father. Then the upstairs attic was 2 rooms and that was our bedrooms.
And did you share a room with any of your siblings?
I did not share a room with any of my siblings because my older brother is 7 years older than I am, and my younger brother is 10 years younger than I am. So I've never shared any rooms.
That must have been nice growing up, having your own space.
Didn't realize how nice it was at the time, but yes.
Let's see. Growing up, what were your favorite games to play?
Inside, I was actually not an extrovert. I was not really out with a lot of people all the time. My cousins would play games sometimes too with us. We had large Monopoly tournaments on the front porch because it was a beautiful front porch we had. And I liked the game called Candyland. Go to the head of the class, which was questions about the United States. And I had a really neat map of all the states. And you put them in order, a puzzle map, put them in order, and then you also learned their capital and what their major products were. I did an awful lot of reading. I have always been a reader.
Always been a reader.
Always been a reader. I was fortunate because the library was near enough that I could walk the couple blocks up and go to the library by myself. And I was known to try to take back books that I had read the same day I took them out, and that was not acceptable in those days. I just like to read.
Still like to read.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that is a hefty book.
Yeah, and I just came from, I volunteered at Castle Shannon Library for a long time. And they had their big book sale yesterday, their used book sale. And I got like 15 books. They'll last me till their next book sale.
Ever expanding library. I like that. Let's see. So what is your first memory of school?
School? I went to Quentin Roosevelt because St. Basil's did not have a kindergarten. And my main memory there was lived on the bottom of a hill, walking up the hill, and my mother would make sure I got to the top of the hill, and then I would walk to the left to the crossing guard. She always looked for me, and then walk up to Quentin Roosevelt. Quentin Roosevelt, I don't remember much of what we did, but I do remember Ida Mae Legg came with her little puppet, and I think she was a dental hygienist, and she would talk to us about dental hygiene, and her little puppet was happy.
Was that K through like 12, or was it preschool?
That was just kindergarten.
Just kindergarten. Okay.
And I spent 12 years in St. Basil's School.
St. Basil's, okay. And what was school like for you? Like,
my daughter gave me a book, which is in there, and I have two here with, named go through your childhood thing. And I don't remember school as being anything really special. I remember as someplace you needed to go, and you learned a lot, and I was generally an AB student. Not at the top of the class, but not at the bottom either. I don't know. I never made a lot of friends there, but I was invited to kids' birthday parties periodically. I never had a birthday party with school people because my birthday was in July. But school was just school, and that's where you went, and that's what you did. It wasn't on anything particular. All the way through 12 years, I really was not too active and too much in school. Although I was active in their high school library. And I was in high school chorus. Alto, probably one of the 3 altos in the whole choral line. But anyway.
Altos are the coolest anyway. Let's see. Okay. When and how did you start going out? Was it alone or with friends?
I played in the neighborhood, but I really, and that's another question that they ask in that What You Like Grandma book. I never really dated. I was not interested in dating. And I went to 1 or 2 high school dances, and I hated them. It was girls on one side, boys on the other, and the regular cliques, and I'm not a clique person, and I just didn't like it. But also, I think of interest, my brother was much more active. My older brother was much more active, and St. Basil's had 2 school buildings, and the old one, which was like 3 blocks from my house, had something called Spy-Ock, and that was where they did dances and things like that. And my brother went there a lot, and I think it stood for St. Basil's something or other. I was too young to know what was going on, but I was aware that there was that activity available. But I never dated really much.
Okay.
I was just more involved in the neighborhood growing up.
That makes sense. So speaking of the neighborhood growing up, how did your community shape you?
We were a very caring community. We all knew all of our neighbors, and we all took care of each other. And like when it snowed, we didn't complain that Public Works didn't come and clear the snow off our street. All the guys would get their shovels and clear off the street. And they knew enough, if it was snow was forecast, to park at the top of the hill so that they didn't have to worry about going to work. But they would come back and shovel. And everybody just took care of each other. There were no animosity, I think, between anybody. There were people that you go, oh, well, but you were still friends with them.
Very cordial atmosphere, huh?
Yeah.
Let's see. So now we're going to start talking a bit more about work. When did you start working?
Do we want to count babysitting? I babysat when I was like 12, 13 years old.
We definitely count babysitting.
25 cents an hour.
Oh.
25 cents an hour. And it was only in the neighborhood. The neighbors across the street and next door to the other house. Then when I graduated from high school, my parents said that they didn't feel I needed to go to college. And I was not going to be a secretary. So they sent me to key punch school, which was an up-and-coming thing because it was automation. And I took a 6-week course in key punch and went on an interview at First Federal of Pittsburgh, Savings and Loan, at 600 Grant Street, which was a Flatiron building, and was hired because the president of the Savings and Loan knew the key punch and automation was in the future. And actually, I was a proof clerk, and really didn't do any key punch at all. But I worked there, and then I'm not sure. I worked there, and I got married when I was there. No, I didn't. I got married when somehow I wound up at General Electric Supply. I'm not sure how I wound up there, but I did. And I worked there for a while. I was transferred from the main office down to Gateway, and I worked there for a while. Again, as a proof clerk, typing up mortgage things like that, mortgage checks and things like that. And then I went over to General Electric Supply, and I was accounts receivable bookkeeper there for New York, Rochester, Buffalo, and got pregnant and had to leave.
Had to leave?
They do not. Back in the 60s, you could not work if you were more than 6 months pregnant, I think. They would not let you work. Yeah.
How'd you feel about that? Like, how did you feel about that?
I wanted to keep working, but by that time I was married, of course, and we just took over what we needed to do. By that time when I got married, I moved to Brookline.
Brookline, okay.
Yeah, so, but we're talking about my childhood, which is totally different, and by the time I got to General Electric Supply was when I got married. Oh. And then life unfolded differently, very differently. But when I worked at home, I would walk up the hill to get a trolley, which was lovely. I left trolleys to go to work because I didn't drive. And eventually it got to the point where the motorman would know if I was running late and was just at the top of the hill and he was pulling out. He would stop and wait till I got on the trolley and then we'd go into work.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, he was a nice guy.
Let's see. So you mentioned that you did key punch and like automation, and then you were doing like mortgage things. Have you done any other type of work
since then? Yeah, a lot. After my second child, my husband left, and I was a welfare mom trying to. And we're back to Brookline now. We're not doing Carrick. That I was welfare mom trying to make ends meet, and he wasn't doing child support. So I did some out of my home market research, which I loved, and the lady that had the company was very understanding. And then I got into doing some in-home daycare because my neighbor's daughter needed somebody to watch her child, and my kids were young. So I started doing daycare one kid at a time. I wouldn't do a whole bunch, but I just watched one baby at a time. And then I was still doing market research. And then eventually, that's a whole other issue. Eventually I wound up in Castle Shannon because Pittsburgh schools were doing forced busing. I didn't drive. I didn't want my kids forced bused to some place in the city that I wasn't able to get to. So I moved from Brookline to Castle Shannon, put my kids in Keystone Oaks where they were bused, but it wasn't forced, and I knew where they were, and it was a totally different neighborhood. And then when they got in school and were able to watch themselves, I went to community college and got an associate's degree. And then dropped the market research, and eventually I knew I had to prove to companies that I was dependable because I had been working at home for so long. And I figured they would, they would kind of question how strong I was in being a loyal employee. So I got a job with TJ Maxx when they first opened their store in Pleasant Hills. And I worked there for 2 years and proved that I could keep on a schedule and all that kind of stuff. And then I found a job. Actually, it was down in Bridgeville at Development Dimensions International. And based on my market research background, I was there to develop leads for the salespeople. So I did that for quite a while, actually. Oh, there was something else before that. I wound up at Copy World of Pittsburgh before that. And again, I was developing leads for the salespeople. And then I wound up with DDI. And then from DDI, I went to South Hills Datacom. Again, developing leads for salespeople. And it's basically customer interaction, talking with the responsible person, trying to find out what their plans were for whatever I was selling at the time, or we were selling at the time, and try to get a salesperson into the building. Then South Hills Datacom got bought out by Black Box, and I was getting up in years anyway. And Black Box was not a nice company. They hired South Hills Datacom, and I was one of the ones to get selected. They did not take everybody from the company. And they were out in past Bridgeville in Washington County. And I worked there for, I guess, a year or two, and they laid me off. And I thought, what am I going to do now? You got severance, but nonetheless, I had to work. I was still a single mom. I've been single since my youngest daughter was a year. So I was looking around at what I might do, and I knew I was older, that I would probably be considered high risk for a lot of companies. And all of a sudden, the World Trade Center came down. And I thought, oh, wow. And I had talked to a lady, because I had done daycare in the past, I had talked to a lady about maybe working at her daycare center. And when that happened, I took that job right away because I knew that kids needed stability and that I was able to give that to them. So I worked till retirement at Crafton Children's Corner, which was down on Banksville Road. And I was one of the infant room aides, which I loved. I love infants. And then eventually I retired, and my life took a whole other
direction.
Yeah, there's other bits of I don't know, did you just want my life? Or were you, I thought you were focusing on Carrick.
I mean, we're talking about you. It's
okay.
Yeah, you and anything you want to talk about.
Well,
and
back. back. My husband left me with 2 babies, and again I struggled, and there was an organization in those years called Parents Without Partners, and the premise was to get parents who were single with their children involved, so that children, and this is a whole different era of belief in the whole country. Children needed to know that their parents weren't the only parents who were single. So that was my reason for joining, but it turns out it was more of a meet and greet and more of a what are you doing tonight kind of place. And I did meet a guy, and we did get along very well, and we dated more or less for a number of years, and it got to the point where I said, no, I can't do this anymore. So he went his way, I went my way, and my younger daughter saw in the newspaper that his father had died, and my parents had died by that time, and I sent him a sympathy card to the funeral home because he was a big part of my life back when my kids were. He was there when my kids were really young. My kids were like 2 or 3 years old, and we were together until I moved to Shannon, which makes them 7 or 8 years old. So we were together a good long time, and we got along really well. I sent him a sympathy card and just said, no matter how old you are, it's hard to lose a parent. He was 11 years older than me. He looked me up just from the return address and called me, and he said his wife at that time was in a home with Alzheimer's, and he wanted to come in and meet me. So we met up again, and we started finishing each other's sentences just like we did when we were together the first time. So while his wife was in the home, he would come in from Latrobe, actually, and we would spend time together. And eventually when she died, he said, I've been coming in here almost every weekend to see you, and you can retire now because you're old enough. Why don't you retire and come live with me in Latrobe? So I did. Didn't get married, but I did, and that was a whole interesting era of my life too. He had kids, and some of them liked me, and some of them didn't because I dated their dad when they were younger. But he had a beautiful, beautiful house, 5 bedrooms, and just absolutely gorgeous house. And it turns out he had Parkinson's, and that's a very debilitating disease. It takes people bit by bit. He did not have the serious Parkinson's that Michael J. Fox has, or a lot of other people. He did not have the form of Parkinson's called Lewy body dementia, which is, I think, Robin Williams had. But he was going downhill, and I stayed and took care of him all the way through.
All the way through.
And he's been gone for 10 years. That's the plant was given to us when he died.
Really?
Yes, that plant is 10 years old.
It's a gorgeous
It
plant.
was very little when it started.
Yeah, it's
But yeah.
still going strong. Beautiful.
And now, after he died, well, actually, in the meanwhile, my grandson got married, and they had no place to stay at the time. And I said, why don't you move into my house because I'm in Latrobe? So they came in and lived for a couple months, really, not too long, because my friend died, and his kids couldn't wait to get me out of the house. So I had to come back in a hurry. But they were here for a little while anyway.
In this house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This house is very much like the second house I grew up in. After we lived in my grandfather's house, my dad decided to build a house on his own, and he bought the lot behind my grandfather's house and built the house, the second house that we lived in, from scratch. He got the plans from Columbus Brothers and did the whole house itself, foundation and the whole thing. The only thing he had people in for were electrician, because they had to do that. Plumbing, no, well, a little plumbing. My grandfather was a plumber. Plaster. But most of it he built all by himself with my uncle's help.
Whoa.
And that house is the same floor plan as this one. And I didn't realize that when I bought this house, but same floor plan as this one. So, what else? I mean, I could go. I did write a memoir called My 9 Lives, and I did go 9 different types of living that I had.
Oh, cool. Well,
Yeah,
feel free to tell us about it. I mean,
that's pretty.
impressive.
But I'm not as chronological as My 9 Lives is. I probably have a copy of it somewhere.
what made you want to write a memoir?
Somebody said you should.
Yeah.
And I've always written too. That's the other thing. I tend, every once in a while, a muse will come and tap me on the shoulder, and I'll write a poem or write a story or something like that.
Oh.
And that goes back to my reading too, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, I thought this was a Carrick story. I didn't think this was my story.
Yes, it's about how your communities, these Pittsburgh communities, have impacted you.
Aha.
Yeah, hey, that's a horse of a different color.
Yes, sure is. Yeah, because my Carrick history is what I was interested in. The fact that my grandfather was not a registered plumber, but a plumber, and he started with 5 of his friends at St. Basil's Church, their credit union. And I thought that was important for Carrick.
Ah. Well, that is very interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
to be the start of so many important things in a community.
Yeah.
Right. But
So, well, that's why I've always been thrifty. That their saying was, teach your dollars to have more sense.
ooh, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, you covered some of this. Like, we can actually talk a bit more about your family. It's like, has your family moved? Like, how'd they come to Pittsburgh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My older brother went to Duquesne University for music.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. He had a group that he played on the radio, and somebody did a recording of that, and he was always into music. He went to Duquesne, got a fellowship to Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, and moved to Cincinnati. My younger brother was very involved with social issues. He was, I'm trying to think of what he was in. He volunteered a lot. He actually taught for a while, or Pioneer Center, which is for handicapped, disability type people, kids. He taught there for a while. He's a student taught there for a while. He's always been involved with people with disabilities or handicapped in some way. So he's been all over the East Coast at different jobs following that work. And he's in Rochester, New York now, and he still does that on weekends or whenever they need him. My older brother is now in California. I don't know how they wound up there. I don't remember that part. But he still, although he just recently had a fall, still in his 80s, and he can't drive, so his wife takes him, goes to nursing homes, especially Alzheimer places, and plays piano and sings to bring the people back to, because music is very healing.
Definitely.
So that also, I guess all that stuff has sort of affected my outlook on life.
Yeah. What would you say are like the core tenets of like your outlook on life?
Like core what?
Like the core like pillars of your outlook on life.
Mr. Rogers, be kind.
Be kind.
Be kind. Help somebody. It's funny. There was a flea market at the senior center that I go to, and I don't need anything, and I'm trying to downsize, but I went up anyway. And when I came back down, I had 2 or 3 things, and the senior center director said, "Yes, but did you get anything for yourself?" And I said, "No." I'd rather give.
Oh.
And I don't know how I guess my mother with her waitressing probably indirectly influenced me like that. This is real psychology type stuff though. I don't know. And my grandfather was very generous, charitable. He was very religious too. The St. Basil's didn't help there for me. 12 years just didn't do it.
didn't
I had
catch
other
on.
issues when I was first single with the church, and it's like, no.
Let's see. All right. So, what do you do today?
What do I do today?
Today.
What you see me doing? I sit. I watch the thing over there. I watch my 3-year-old great-granddaughter 1 day a week, so her parents can work. I go to Seton Center and play bingo. That's Catholic again. Usually Mondays and Fridays, and if they have anything else going on that's interesting, I will attend that, but I don't do a lot up there. They did have, and I was telling Mary about this, they did have a speaker this past Wednesday, WQED, and the guy that presented the program was the producer of the program, about Elizabeth Black, who was a portrait artist in the 1920s and 30s in Pittsburgh. And when the war came, she decided to go overseas as a Red Cross nurse or Red Cross whatever, volunteer in the, they called them donut dollies. They went from site to site to cheer up the servicemen on the front lines. And it was really interesting because what she did when she was there, she asked the Red Cross, gave her business plan, and went and drew charcoal sketches of different servicemen out in the field. And she did over 1,000 of them. And all of that work was lost. And when she came back to the United States, she gave up her career to be with her husband, which was common in the 40s. But it was an excellent program. And every once in a while they'll do that. They'll have excellent programs. But that's what I look for. I look for stuff like that. But other than that, I don't do much. I do the Seton Center, and I do watching my great-granddaughter, and I read a lot. I crochet. I've been making Afghans for the Veterans Place, because AARP delivers stuff to the veterans over in Oakland, wherever it is. So I do lap Afghans.
That's really sweet.
I made Afghans for all of my grandkids too.
Aww.
They don't have them yet. They'll get them when they open that box. And I'm not here to see it.
Goodness. Let's see. And what are your dreams? And you can talk about, like, what were your dreams? What are they now?
My dreams were to get married and have kids. And that didn't quite work out. I did get married, I did have kids, but the rest of it just didn't work out. And then after that, it was just a struggle. When I first met my guy at Parents Without Partners, I was a welfare mom without a car, living in a rented house. When he left, or when I told him to leave, he had moved me to Castle Shannon, so I was again renting. And at that point, my dad had bought me a car, so I had a car. But it was just all of that to here was a struggle. And there wasn't a lot of room or time for dreams. It was basically trying to make sure that my kids had a roof over their heads, food on the table, normal childhood, as normal as could be without a father. Father-daughter dances really bothered me. But, it was just important that they had what could be close to a normal. Eventually, thanks to my credit union stuff from my grandfather, I managed to get enough money to put a down payment on this house and move here. And I had lived in Brookline when I was first married, and I liked the neighborhood. It's a walkable neighborhood. When I could walk, that was good. And it's a close-knit neighborhood here, too, although not anymore. But I managed to buy a house in Brookline. It was in my price range, and I walked in, and it's like, yeah, this is good, because it'll be my retirement home. Because I knew I didn't want to go to a retirement home. It was on one floor. It had a small yard. It was ideal for what I hoped the rest of my life would be, and it's turned out that way. But I had no real great big plans and dreams, and it was just from the time I was divorced, it was just a hard scrabble to keep on moving on. Eventually, my guy, when he came back the second time around, he did take me places, and we did travel. He had the wherewithal to do that. That was the other thing. I never had the money to do that. When my grandson was little, they lived with me. And we'd go out somewhere, and I'd get change back, and I'd say, you can have everything but the quarters. And I'd give him all the money. But the quarters were too important. They were too much money for me to give away at that point. So it was always just, fighting to keep my head above water. But eventually, it worked out fine.
Yeah, I was about to say.
God has a plan.
Looks like you won. You won the fight.
Yep.
And now the final question is, what was it like telling your story today?
Basically, because I had done a memoir, and because my daughter, the family has other issues that we don't need to get into, but my daughter, who's got issues anyway, gave me a Mom, I Want to Know Your Story book. And what I'm doing is basically regurgitating a lot of the stuff that I put in that book. And that was just in the past year. So this is not anything new. This is all stuff that has been going through my head, as well as, well, some no, I didn't. I don't think I made any new adventures today. I think this is it. It's pretty much. And here, there's this one, Grandma's Story, and there's a family tree. Oh, Grandma's Story was the neatest one, though. I don't know when I did this. Where was you born? St. Joseph's. Young. Were you the youngest? No, I had a brother older than me and a brother younger than me. And what else? What were your favorite toys? Did you have a bicycle? I liked the game called Go to the Head of the Class. I had a really nice desk I liked to draw and color at. I also liked to read a lot. Playing with paper dolls was fun too. I had a tricycle and would ride it up and down Westmont Avenue. Just our house was 4 stories high. On the first floor was Uncle Carl, my mom's brother, Aunt Sophie, his wife, and Anna Marie and Bobby, their kids. On the second and third floors was my mom, my dad, Jim, and me. Also Mom's dad, who we called Pup. Sounds like, Pup. He's German. He came from Germany. Oh. Uncle Carl and Aunt Sophie's bathroom was in the basement. This is all the stuff I've told you. Holidays. When I was 5, I had so much snow, the city was snowbound. The city got shut down. Snow was higher than I was. We would sled down a steep hill since there weren't too many cars, and we didn't have to worry about that. I really didn't like being out in the cold too much. I didn't steer the sled well either, and was always running into people or the curb. I've done this. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. Hey, at least you know you're consistent.
Well, and the other thing is, that's part of who I am. I want to tell people. When I went through my divorce, I wasn't shy about saying what I did and how I managed, because I figure maybe what I went through or what I say might help somebody else. And that goes back to the I am a helping, caring person.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that seems like it was also a really big part of your life. Like, what was that? Like, as outside of the monetary type stuff, to be divorced in that time period?
My neighbor actually didn't want her husband to come over and check my water heater because I was single.
Oh, whoa.
So there was some worry about that, but I was not that. I was just focused on raising my children. Mm-hmm. That was my main focus all the way through. And just other than the monetary, the rest of it was just make sure the kids were doing well.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I didn't. Divorce was not common in the 60s. Well, not. It was beginning to be common in the 60s. Because I was married in 68. Well, he left in 71. After he said he loved somebody else. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
You love somebody else, you're not going to live here.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, he did come back once and wanted to come back, and I said, we'll date. And that never worked out. So, no, that didn't work out either. But I was mostly focused on, actually, the money to be able to take care of my kids. Mm-hmm. They don't know that, or believe that, but that's the way it was.
They don't believe that?
A little bit. My older one's more aware. My younger one is having issues because her father left when she was a baby. And she still hasn't quite gotten over that, I don't think. Mm. So, and I've never said that. He left because he loved somebody else. Mm. And Kathy would go over. My older daughter would go with him to her house. And when she came back and said, "That's going to be my new mommy," I said, "No, that's not happening anymore." Ooh. So it didn't. And yeah, I've had a very interesting life overall. Yes, but I'm a survivor. Or, as I say, I am woman, hear me roar. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us about all of this. I mean,
you're welcome. Yeah, you want to take the book and read it?
I mean, I'm tempted. We might have to come back for it because there's a process where we're going to ask you for some, like, what is it, mementos?
Yeah, they're just like documents and things you feel like that really represent your life. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You can have time to think about it because we'll have to go and yeah.
I don't know. You know, I'll dig up my memoir for you then.
Yeah, we'd love to see it.
Well, let me. It might be right where I think it is. Let me check out.
Ooh, okay.
Turn off your tape recorder if you want.
All right. Thank you.